What if I told you Samsung isn't just refreshing its foldables this year, it's making its boldest move yet? And no, I'm not talking about the obvious upgrade everyone expects. There's something much bigger coming, and once you see it, you'll understand why this changes everything. Yes, the Galaxy Z Fold 8 is on the way, and on paper, it looks like a solid step forward. But that's not the real story here, because alongside it, Samsung is preparing something completely different, a new form factor that feels like it's targeting one rival in particular. Before we get there, let's break down what's happening with the standard Fold 8. Over the past few weeks, we've seen a flood of leaks, CAD renders, firmware details, even pricing. So here's everything that actually matters, starting with the design. At first glance, it looks familiar. Very familiar. The Fold 8 sticks close to the Fold 7, leaning more toward refinement than reinvention. But once you look closer at the dimensions, something interesting shows up. It's slightly thicker this time, 9mm folded versus 8.9 and 4.5mm unfolded compared to 4.2. Not a huge jump, but enough to raise questions. So what's behind that extra thickness? There are two strong possibilities. One is a larger battery, which we'll get into shortly. The other is the return of the S Pen experience. The digitizer is rumored to be back, adding a bit of bulk, but also restoring a feature many users have been waiting to see again. Now, here's where things get really important. Samsung might finally be addressing one of the biggest issues foldables have had since day one, and if this works, it could change how people feel about these devices entirely. At CES 2026, Samsung showed off a new display structure, dual-layer ultra-thin glass combined with a laser-drilled metal support. The result? A crease reduction of around 20%. Not gone completely, but noticeably improved. And that matters more than you think. For a lot of people, that visible crease has always been the deal breaker. Even if you don't notice it in daily use, it's always there. So cutting it down by 20% could finally shift opinions. Display sizes themselves remain unchanged, 8 inches inside and 6.5 inches outside, but there's still hope for improvements like anti-reflective coating, something competitors have already done well, and something that could elevate the experience further. Now let's talk cameras, because this is where things can sound misleading at first. Yes, there's a 200-megapixel main sensor, but that's not new. The real upgrade is happening somewhere else. The ultra-wide camera is expected to jump from 12 megapixels to 50 megapixels, likely using the same sensor as the S26 Ultra. That's a massive improvement, especially for landscapes and group shots. But the telephoto? Still unchanged, and still the weakest link. On the brighter side, battery life is getting a noticeable boost, from 4,400 milliamps to 5,000 milliamps. That's about a 14% increase. For a dual-screen device, that's a meaningful step forward, and it explains that slight increase in thickness. Charging is finally improving too. Samsung is moving from 25 watts to 45 watts wired charging. It's not industry-leading, but compared to where it was, this is a welcome upgrade. And under the hood, things get even more interesting. You're getting the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5, paired with vapor chamber cooling, something the previous model lacked. That should help with performance stability, especially in bright conditions where overheating was an issue before. Pricing stays in familiar territory, with 3 configurations starting at $1,999. And the expected launch window? July 2026, aligning with Samsung's usual schedule. So overall, the Fold 8 looks like a solid, polished upgrade. But here's the twist. This isn't Samsung's biggest move, not even close, because the real gamble is something called the Fold 8 Wide. And this is where everything starts to shift. Instead of the usual tall foldable shape, this one opens into a wider, almost square display with a 4:3 ratio. Think less like a phone and more like unfolding a compact tablet, a completely different experience. The inner screen drops slightly to 7.6 inches, while the cover screen shrinks to 5.4. Closed, it feels compact. Opened, it transforms into a wide canvas, perfect for watching content the way it was meant to be seen. Of course, there are trade-offs. It's thicker, the battery is slightly smaller, and you lose the telephoto lens. But if that wider display is what you care about, those compromises might not matter at all. And here's the bigger picture. This isn't random. This feels like a direct response to Apple's upcoming foldable, a device rumored to use a similar wide format, possibly even using Samsung's own display tech. Which means Samsung isn't just improving foldables anymore. It's trying to redefine them before the competition even arrives. A completely new category, launched ahead of Apple's first move. And if Apple's version lands around $2,500 as rumored, Samsung suddenly starts to look very competitive, especially if this wider model comes in at a lower price. So now the question is simple. Do you go for the refined, familiar Fold 8 or take a chance on something entirely new with the Fold 8 Wide? Because whichever direction you choose, this year foldables are no longer playing it safe.